from or across the spectrum. What is really great is that once you mention the opportunity to mentor within our community, especially, there are more hands going up than we can have mentees for. So really appreciate the engagement and the enthusiasm for that. And then on the right side, what you'll see is some of the companies that we have people from. So we try and make sure that it is across the country, it is across multiple industries, it is across multiple regions, and then we try and pair people with somebody who's actually not from the same industry, just so that we can broaden the expertise that they get exposed to. Okay, so as of this one hasn't been updated, but the next time you see it, you'll have Salesforce and Flagstaff on there as well. Okay, next slide. So why mentoring through ASEI? Everybody knows the benefits of mentoring, so I'm not going to touch on the left side, but one more click, Kush. And what we want to talk about is why ASEI? You know, almost everybody has a mentoring program through their companies. They've got informal mentors. Why ASEI? Well, for one, you may have an Asian Connections ERG that does mentoring. You may have just general mentorship programs. But ASEI, you know, the folks that you're paired with have come through the ranks just like you. If you were an immigrant, had to get a scholarship to come here to study, then you had to go get your visa, get your immigration. We understand those kind of challenges, and so we understand, you know, that kind of a match. Next, we also look for geographic and industrial diversity. So what do I mean by that? So I work for General Motors. Lots of mentoring through there, but the only mentoring I've got is from people who've worked at General Motors. If you ask me what happens in the oil and gas industry, I don't know that I could answer that, right? So here, we look for people across the industry and across the country. So if at some point you were thinking, you know, maybe I want to go work in California, well, guess what? You let us know and we'll pair you up with somebody there, right? Or you're thinking about a different industry. Opportunity to look for that. Senior leaders, sometimes it's hard to get access to senior leaders. Remember, in this case, we have mentors who are willing and eager and want to give back. So a lot of times you get paired with vice presidents, directors, etc. Okay, and then finally, a couple of other services, a couple of quick clicks, Kush. There's resume, interview preps, and then primary thing we do is hand match to the interest. So those who are interested, if you know people are interested, what really helps us is if you can make sure they put down what they really want out of this program. And most of us don't, but that's okay. It's good to have that. So a quick note on the advisory team. I'm going to start with Vatsala. She is the glue that holds us together. She is also on the national board. She's the secretary of the ASEI National Board. She has been past president of the Michigan ASEI chapter. And as a side gig, she works as an IT architect at Seco Tools. She is kind of the glue that keeps us together. Talked about myself a little bit. Rakesh Patel is also from GM. And then Sai Gopisetti actually runs the ERG Mentorship Program for a couple hundred people. And he's been doing that for 5-6 years, I think, very successfully. So this is the program here. This year we added Kush Shah, who has 37 plus years of experience. He is the incoming president of American Society of Quality. And again, he does numerous mentorships on the side, and he volunteered and said, I want to help with this, give back. And so he's on and he will be taking over. So thanks, Kush. And that brings me to Divya. So Divya from the Silicon Valley chapter, she's the VP of Strategy and Innovation at Salesforce. But more than that, she has given us more than we can ask. Very busy. Most of the calls she takes is from a car or an airport. Divya, I think that's 90% of the time we've talked, that's where you've been, but extremely, extremely interested in giving back and mentoring. And she really brought a different perspective to the MentorConnect program last year by a couple of key suggestions she made. So with due respect, just to give you a little bit of background about Divya as we go into the next slide. Divya, as I said, is VP of Strategy and Innovation, been at Salesforce for a while. But I want to talk about a couple of other things about Divya. So if you didn't know, She co-founded the COVID-19 India Fund to help those in India that were struggling during the COVID time. She was also a special student, the first special student from India to get a scholarship to go to MIT from India. And so did a great job there. And we were talking about MentorConnect. And what I found out is I can't keep up with what she does because last night she just did a seminar for an MIT special event. Okay, so she's just like moving on. We're just so glad she's here with us. She heads the women's ERG at Salesforce globally. Again, very much interested in giving back. And she's also on the national board of ASCI. So finally, something that maybe you all don't know, I learned recently. I was late to a call for Divya and I was trying to give her how great I'm doing and trying to learn music. And she said, oh yeah, she's an accomplished Indian classical musician. So Divya, with that, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for helping us. And I'm going to turn this over to you to kind of kick off the MentorConnect program.
Thank you, Ram. Hi, everyone. Vanakkam, namaste. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are. As Ram said, MentorConnect, we're hoping will make a huge difference in our mentees' lives and also give an opportunity for those that are looking for a way to give back. I am extremely excited to have with me 3 outstanding panelists. And so without wasting time, I'm just going to jump right in. Our first panelist today is Rakesh Sally. Rakesh is a senior vice president in Flagstar Bank's corporate finance department, responsible for the regulatory capital planning, as well as test stressing processes. He also handles the financial evaluation of mergers and acquisitions. Prior to this role, he's held several different positions, and all of them span across accounting, treasury, risk management, and several other groups in the banking and automotive sector. In terms of his career, he started his career as an engineer at Motorola Inc., where he worked on cellular infrastructure systems for almost 9 years. In his spare time, he loves to spend time with his kids, playing tennis and watching movies. And he's recently taken up golfing and hopes to hit the ball straight consistently. Rakesh, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the invite, Divya. Thank you.
Our next guest today is Jay Desai. Jay is the VP of Technology from Salesforce, and he is one of the leaders in the success organization responsible for our global technology teams. He comes with over 20 years of digital transformation expertise across several different industries. And the thing about Jay is he has a track record of delivering across organizations of high complexity, leading technology teams as well as sophisticated initiatives. I know Jay personally, so I can also tell you this, he's a wonderful human being to work with and jumps in anytime someone asks him to help. A great mentor to have. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you, Divya.
Glad to have you here. Our last, but definitely one of the most exciting panelists is Abhiram Iyengar, Abhi. And I say he's exciting because he was a mentor as well as a mentee in last year's MentorConnect. So you can hear a lot of tidbits coming out from him. He's done his master's in mechanical engineering and is currently pursuing his MBA at the Kelley School of Business. He's got over 8 years of experience at General Motors across different roles in engineering as well as in program management. He's also the VP for one of the largest ERGs at GM. Welcome, Abhi. All right, so let's jump right in. So I'm going to ask all 3 of you to first begin with, just tell me who's an inspiring leader, according to you. Jay, do you want to go first?
Sure. And I think this changes over time as you yourself gain more experience. And I would say in the very beginning, inspiring leaders were the ones that were accomplishing a lot of things very quickly, right? Like like Zuckerberg, and this is way back, maybe not now, but maybe 10 years ago, was a leader that you would look up to and say, oh, wow, he's doing really interesting things. In my own personal experience, I would gravitate towards leaders that are very visionary or have a track record of execution and ability to move up the ranks. But over time, what I found is what I really gravitate towards are leaders that have empathy. And there's a little bit of a misconception, I think, that leaders with empathy don't have the drive or don't have the ability to handle hard conversations or hard situations. But it turns out like leaders with empathy actually are some of the most successful leaders, and they bring two things to the table. Number one is they have the ability to execute in very complex situations because they listen, and they can observe behaviors that maybe other leaders can't. But number two, they're really good at paying attention to the details and understanding you as a person, as an individual. Whereas a lot of times leaders that I found that are really hard charging or trying to move up the ranks or accomplish something really big can be really focused on the vision, but less focused on details. And sometimes that can shortchange you on the advice and the attention they give you.
I would like to echo
Please, Rakesh, I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jay. In my career so far, some of the most inspiring leaders or mentors, if you will, informal mentors I've had who let you fly. Like they give you enough motivation, encouragement, and challenging assignments, if you will, that stretch you, that help you grow. But then they let you fly. By that I mean, like, they give you enough leash that you're on your own. If you have needs for needing help, you can always get them. But those are the best leaders I have found, that have helped me grow. And then instilling like professional courage. These leaders have professional courage, and they try to instill that in you. By that professional courage, I mean is if you are in a meeting or if you're in a team setting somewhere, and you have a seat at the table for a reason. So professional courage means if you don't agree with somebody, and they are like, say, 2 or 3 levels higher up from you, you still have the courage to professionally express your opinions in such a way that you let them know that you disagree with them and for reasons A, B, C. But then you just don't stop there. You provide your own opinions and how things could be achieved, but in a different route. Circling back to your original questions, it's like leaders like that, managers I worked for, who give you that freedom to grow that way.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Abhi, what about yourself?
So it's kind of a borrowed point from both of them. I mean, but this is actually true to what I believe. Yes, an inspiring leader for me can be a person who's, he or she should have vision for change. I think that's the first thing that I look for. Then to what Rakesh was saying, more, apart from professional courage, the being bold enough to pursue that vision, no matter what the obstacles are, I think is something which is key. Lead the change from the front, right? Like lead the whole, be it a group, be it an organization. And then more importantly, knowing how to connect the dots. So you have a vision, but being able to translate that in a simpler format to your larger audience and being able to connect the dot, I think is key when it comes to an inspiring leader, because you might have some great thoughts in your head, but being able to communicate that in an actionable plan, I think is one of the key things that I look out for in a good leader. That's as far as the business side of things. As far as the people side of things, he or she should, like a couple of them already said, he or she should be empathetic, right? Truly trust the team that they build, and then empower them, right? Along with empowering them, invest in their ambitions and growth. So as a leader, you're not only empowering them to do their day job, but also you sit down with them and invest in their own personal career and help them grow wherever they have to or wherever they want to as the next step. So I think these are the kind of things that I look for in a leader, especially when I look up to somebody. And as far as examples are concerned, I always try to connect with people from similar backgrounds. Indra Nui has been somebody that I've always looked up to. Satya Nadella talks about empathy all the time. He talks about, having that vision and being bold. So he's also somebody I connect with. And then even on the sports arena, right? I mean, being bold and following passion. I like Virat Kohli a lot. So it's like you can always find inspiring figures in every walk of life. And I try to do that. I just don't look at one person. I just try to see some key traits in everybody, and I try to build my own perception of what a good leader is.
Awesome. Very different answers, but I think I'm taking away empathy, professional courage, connecting the dots, and in general observation across multiple leaders, because you can pick up multiple traits. That's awesome. Okay, that was enough of the easy questions. I'm going to jump right in. Abhi, this one's for you as a mentee. So given your experience as a mentee, and Jay, to you as well, but from a mentor perspective, because I know you mentor a lot of people. When it comes to all those mentees who are listening to us, how does one go about choosing a mentor? And added to that, how should one prep for a mentor conversation? Because a lot of times you have a spectrum of people having 10 bullets they want to get through in half an hour. And on the other side, people who don't even prep and who expect the mentor to prep instead. Could you just guide our audience here a little bit on what they should do to prep for a successful conversation? And also, how do they in the first place choose so that the mentor is right for them?
Sure. So again, a couple of different scenarios. You can be in a cultural setup like this, and then you can be in an organizational setup. So it depends on where you're looking on seeking a mentor. But I think the first aspect is, if you know the mentor and if you're inspired by them, that would be the first step towards looking up to a mentor and seeking out that relationship. But there are other additional attributes that you want to see. Like, are they, is he or she someone you want to be in the next 10 years, 5 years, right? Do you see yourself there? And it could be position-wise, cross-industry position-wise, or it could be functional-wise, right? So that's very important, because they would be somebody who could help you draft that path to kind of help you get there and get the next step. But also, an added benefit, again, with a chapter like this and within ACI, is somebody from a similar background, who understands the personal side of things, who's already been through the struggles, who can help you navigate that path in a more efficient way. I think is one of the key things that you would want to see in a mentor as you seek your mentors. As far as preparation is concerned, as a mentee, I think it starts out with, you have to create an atmosphere of being honest. Like, that trust is very important in a mentor-mentee relationship. So you have to open up, it's a very casual atmosphere, right? You have to be candid. I think that is very critical to help. That's how the mentor can understand you and basically help you out. Sure, you can have your list of bullet points. You can definitely seek out. You can definitely talk about your ambitions. You can talk about your struggles, and they will definitely help you out. But a more critical thing for a mentee is the mindset, right? As you're entering that conversation, you need to have an open frame of mind. As in, maybe you might get an answer which you're not expecting. So be open to feedback. Be open to something constructive, but also at the same time seek to understand. Like, the mentor might be communicating something, and you have to seek to understand where they're coming from, because that's how you draw upon their experiences, right? You have to learn and draw upon their experiences. And I think that is critical as far as preparation is concerned, getting into the whole conversation. So it's all about building that trust and building that connection.
Awesome. Jay?
Yeah, so just from my experience, I'm going to go back to something my dad said when I was young, which is always have a plan. But of course, because it came from my dad, I didn't listen initially. But then with experience, I realized that planning is important. And the reason why planning is important, even if it's a sketch of what you are thinking of doing from a career perspective, you may not know all the details yet. It's important because when you go to a mentor, one of the first questions they're going to ask is, how can I help you? And the reason why they ask that question is because there's a broad variety of things that they can help you with. They can't guess what you need, right? They have to learn from you. They have to, you have to explain to them, what you're looking for. So having some sort of plan on how you want to leverage the mentorship relationship is important. What's even more ideal is if you have a career plan. And if you have a career plan, you can say, all right, these are the gaps that I have in trying to achieve my goal. And these are the type of mentors I'm going to seek out to help me along the journey. It has to be very active because often people think of a mentorship, especially in big corporations. All right, I'm assigned a mentor, maybe even randomly, right? And it's like a push down versus push up. But the best, most meaningful mentorships are ones that are very intentional in how they can help you, which means that there's an initiative that has to be taken from the mentoree side as well. And the other thing I'll mention is because Abhi, I think you mentioned a lot of the main things I would say as well. But the one thing additional I would mention is that diversity is very important. Because often what you find in mentorship relationships is that people will gravitate towards people that sort of they can relate to, right? And I know this is a Asian forum, so I'll say maybe a lot of people are going to gravitate towards Asian mentors. But you really need diversity and you need contrarian point of views. The best mentors are not going to be confirmation bias mentors. They're not going to confirm all the things that you suspect are good. They're going to challenge you, or they're going to give you point of views that, and maybe in very uncomfortable ways. And I'll give you an example. So I had a mentor at Accenture, and I was a young leader at the time, and I had a bunch of older leaders that I was working with, and I was I was very confident in what I was doing, and that what I was doing was right, and that the other leaders did not have it right. And I was challenging them. And there was a lot of friction there because they viewed me as maybe a younger person with less experience. And we weren't getting anywhere. And so I went to my boss / mentor, and he told me, and I told him the problem, and I expected him to help me resolve this. But instead he said, go figure it out yourself, which is really important because the problem I was experiencing that moment was something I'm going to experience over and over again. And so that kind of mentorship that sort of takes you out the comfort zone, doesn't give you the answer that you expected, is really important.
I love it.
Now, just to
ahead.
add to something that, if I may, Abhi said earlier too, and Jay as well, I think personality click is also very important, right? Like if there's a good personality fit between the mentor and the mentee, that helps enable the candid dialogue that Abhi was talking about, be able to exchange ideas, and then also like create a no judgment zone. It should be a relationship where neither party is judging each other,
Awesome. So Rakesh, we'll start with you now since you have the mic already. When I was younger in my career, I found that, reaching out to someone was a block because I felt like I was using up their time and maybe they wouldn't find enough in a two-way relationship. They wouldn't get enough out of it. Now, as a mentor, why do you have mentees in the first place?
For me, it's the satisfaction of seeing a mentee grow. And I think a really good mentor, a really good leader, we talked about earlier, they would not be selfish in their own agenda. They would have vested interest in growing their team, growing their mentees. So for me, that's very important. In a mentee, and I've never had a formal mentor-mentee relationship. Everywhere, so far it's been informal. But if somebody reaches out to me, I would be like looking for like, well, what do they hope to get out of this? Are they sincere, right? That goes a long way in having a good relationship. Then they're open to feedback. They're open to constructive criticism and be able to listen to you, grow. And I always like encourage these kind of informal things because it selfishly, it provides me with the talent of pool, a pool of talent that I can I know there's somebody out there if I ever need a skill set, this person is, in this group, I can tag that person. So, for me, it's also like a talent retention or talent kind of pool accumulation tool.
Got it. Jay, what about yourself? What has your experience been?
Yeah, it's similar to Rakesh, and what I'll say is I think in every organization, it's the leadership's imperative to create more leaders, right? And so it's not even something that is done just because we want to do it. It's because we are mandated to do it. I guess I get asked the question all the time, Jay, who's going to be your replacement? Jay, which leaders are you nurturing in your group in our talent reviews? And so we're incentivized to do it. And so I think people should not feel shy in reaching out to leaders on the assumption that they are, wasting their time or, am I good enough to be a mentoree? A lot of people that I've seen be really successful in this just ask. And what's the worst that can happen? They can say no, they can maybe not respond. That's not the end of the world. And the best case is they do respond and you form a relationship, especially with someone that you may not have a connection with, but you desire to have a connection with. So there's really very little risk in asking. And trust me, no leader is going to remember that you asked and they did not respond, or no one's going to think negatively about that. But from a perspective of what do I get out of it? I think especially when you're in leadership, you start losing the pulse of the street, and having mentorees that are maybe lower rung really keep you closer to what's happening on the ground, which is really important. It gives you a pulse of what's happening that you otherwise don't get, because you're dealing with like more macro level topics or topics in more abstract way because you're in more senior leadership.
Awesome. I love it. Beat of the street, learning, just the satisfaction, like Rakesh, you mentioned. Abhi, you had a dual role last year, right? You were a mentee. So you talked to us about, how you were thinking about a mentor and how you went about choosing it. Of course, Ram took out some of the work, Ram and Sai, from our, matching process. But in terms of, what you felt as the mentor in those programs, could you shed a little bit of light from your experience?
Yeah, sure. It was eye-opening for me, right? I was probably in the last 2 years is when I've started mentoring some people, right? Before that, I was always this typical mentee, right? You stereotype a typical mentee, looking at the future, trying to be ambitious and stuff like that. I think it helped me two things why I liked it. The first one is it helped me understand myself better.
Shut up.
When somebody
clearly did not like that. Please, I request you to just kindly mute yourselves.
Mute yourself, please.
Yeah.
No, probably I think they are saying it to someone else in the background.
Yeah, it definitely sounded like someone in the background. I would just move on.
I'll look at it.
But Abhi, can you just repeat your point? Sorry.
Yeah. So no, I was basically saying it helps you understand yourself better, right? You are, and what it is like you then look into yourself to see, okay, what are some of the strengths that they would look at you for, which you can leverage for the greater good? Like, what are some of those key areas which you can pick on so that you can contribute for the greater good? And just like Rakesh and Jay were saying, like developing that pipeline, either within the community, within the organization, based on which format and where you're being a mentor, right? I think is very critical. And it just helps you grow as a person and as a leader within yourself. That's the first one. The second one, I believe, which was very critical, was you get to you get to interact with a different generation, like a slightly different generation, and you can see where they are and what they're doing, and you get to learn so much from them, right? Either in terms of preparation, either in terms of agility, where they're going, how strategic they are. There's so many things you get to learn from them, And like Jay was already saying, it helps you stay relevant, but it also helps you learn more from them. So it's also about paying it forward, but it's also about learning from them. So I think these are the two things that join together really help me. And I really like that whole mentor-mentee relationship, and especially having a mentee, knowing that you're making you're contributing in a positive way, whichever way you can, I think was very eye-opening for me.
That's fantastic. Now, in terms of, so we've talked about how should one prep, how should one even go about choosing it. Clearly, mentees and mentors connect in various different ways. One thing I've had trouble with, I know many others have had trouble with, is the close. As people, as leaders, as we evolve, in our lifetime, and as our mentors evolve, sometimes you might need to part as friends in this role. You might need to say, hey, this doesn't work for me any longer, or for some reason, you might be moving into a different role. They might be moving to a different role. You might need a break. So just like any other relationship, it's pretty hard to close a mentor-mentee relationship, and most people find it awkward. It's made even worse with this digital age where you can't meet someone for a coffee. Any advice from, say Rakesh and Jay on how can you close a mentorship relationship out elegantly from either side?
Yeah, I can kickstart it off. That's a tough question, right? And it's a tough situation to be in, especially if the relationship, has been going on for years. If the relationship, the mentor-mentor relationship, is in a organizational framework, it's actually even tougher, right? But to me, that's the best place. That's the most effective place also, but it's the toughest place to get out of. But, like we talked about earlier, I think Abhi mentioned, and, Jay mentioned as well, if the relationship was built on trust, right? And it's a very candid relationship, no judgment zone. You should be able to have a candid conversation and say, hey, whether you're a mentor or a mentee, look, over the past, period, XYZ has happened, and, either I don't have time for this, or, the priorities have changed, right? It's time to move on. And maybe, it could be as simple as a mentor, you don't have anything else to offer to this mentee, right? That mentee could be your peer at that time, in a different organization or even in your organization. I've had that. Then, instead of a mentor-mentee relationship, it turns into a friendship, or a peer relationship. Another way to end this could be like this very forum, right? Like the MentorConnect, have a program for a dedicated time, right? Like 6 months in this case. Abhi, I don't know if you had a year long or whatever, right? Then it's like, after a certain period, the relationship would end, right? And now it's up to you whether you want to carry it forward informally, if it really clicked, or, it's time, kind of like speed dating, go to the next, person. My thoughts.
Yeah, I think Rakesh, you're spot on. And what I'd say is it's not a close, it's more of a transition to a new stage. And I think, Rakesh, those were the points that you're making, which is that at some point, you're going to outgrow the mentorship because it served its purpose, but you don't want to outgrow the relationship, which I think what everyone's concern is. And so that could mean multiple things. It doesn't mean close. It means, okay, now our relationship is more of a peer-to-peer because I progressed, or it's more of a friendship, right? Or it's more of one of those work relationships where, hey, I'm going to ping you once in a while, or we're going to meet in offsites, and we're going to, just continue the relationship. It doesn't go away. But I think, one thing we have to be cognizant of is time is very valuable, and having 30-minute meetings every month or every quarter, there's only so much of that you can do. And after it's proven its usefulness, you got to give that time back as both a mentoree and a mentor who are both time constrained. I think Rakesh you're really good on some of those signals on when that transition should happen.
Awesome. Thank you for helping me with that awkwardness. And you're spot on in terms of, identifying that relationship, and that is more important in any organization, or even if it's not within the organization. Now, when it comes to just mentor-mentee meetings, we had a couple of questions from, before around what does a good mentor-mentee meeting look like? And this is not to stereotype, because any role, any situation can demand a different type of meetings. But Abhi, let's start with you. What tips can you share about having a good mentor-mentee meeting, especially online?
Sure. So time is of the essence, right? Especially in online meetings, you literally have a 50-minute window or 25-minute window based on if you're having a half hour or 1 hour, and allowing the transition to the next meeting. And most of the time, your mentors are senior leaders. So you have to realize that you have to put in the groundwork before going into that meeting. I think preparedness is the key. The second element to this is knowing what you want out of that meeting. Just going, what is the desired outcome out of that meeting? I think that is key, because like Jay already mentioned, they're going to ask you, how can I help you? But steering the conversation to what you want to achieve out of that meeting, I think is critical. And look, at best, what do you get? Like 4 or 5 meetings with a formal mentor relationship. I think that is extremely crucial for you to make sure that you have your message in a crisp manner, and then you're asking the right questions so that you can get the best out of that hour or half hour that you have with your mentor. But then, that is one aspect to it. There is another aspect to it, right? There are situations when you really don't have a template. Like you honestly cannot put together a deck, right? You cannot make a presentation. That is where this whole casual atmosphere, candidness kind of strikes in, because you realize that, yes, he or she is a leader, but this relationship is a mentor and a mentee relationship, and not a leader and an employee relationship, right? And when that happens, it's okay to open up that one meeting, maybe with a blank slate. Like just open up a Word document and brainstorm with the mentor as to how you want to navigate that particular situation, how you want to formulate a particular plan, because it's okay not to know. And that's what they're there for, right? So it's kind of a tricky situation, but you have to assess what the topic is and then be open to both frame of mind and go into the meeting accordingly. Another aspect, some other key aspects for online meetings, which I have found help me a lot, is get on their calendar, right? Book it, have your advance dates booked, because trust me, their schedule is extremely busy. And also sometimes if you have like follow-up items, let's say there is a month gap between one meeting and the other. If there are follow-up items, feel free to reach out, exchange emails, have an open communication line, right? It's okay to reach out that way. And depending on how your relationship is with your mentor, I have a couple of great mentors that have just picked up the phone and said, hey, can I ping you for a minute or two? I'm going through the situation, what's going on. So it's just about having that emotional intelligence and understanding the situation, and then just navigating it based on that. But always have an open line of communication between your meetings. Just don't think about that relationship is only for that 1 hour. It's not like that, is what my takeaway is for mentor-mentee online relationships.
I'm going to add just one point. In terms of, I would say with all the prep that you talked about, love the blank slate idea and the follow-up. I think one thing that I find the best mentees do is also a simple thank you during Thanksgiving or, once a year, something, just to acknowledge the impact that they've had. I had one mentee who literally took out all their feedback from their promo timing and sent it to me saying, hey, here's all the stuff that we worked on, and there's relevant feedback from others in the organization. Such a heartwarming feeling at the end of the day. Like, that was one of my best moments. All right, I know that, we have only a little bit more time. So I'm just gonna ask you, 2 more simple, small questions, and I'll probably, request a few of you to answer. So Rakesh and Jay, this is for you. You've probably gotten several requests to be a mentor. How do you go about choosing a mentee from among these several requests? Rakesh,
I can
Jay?
Yeah,
Sure.
I can start on this one. So that's a very difficult question because you obviously want to say yes to everyone. So there are several different ways to handle it. Number one, I think as a mentor, you yourself have to have some sort of purpose on why am I mentoring people? And let's say it's to create the next generation of leaders. So you may then bias yourself towards accepting those type of mentorees. But that doesn't mean an automatic no to others. And so finding scale as a leader to share your knowledge and experiences and also learn from others is important. So two of the things that we're doing at Salesforce, which I think, Divya, you're familiar with, is number one, mentor circles. So basically we have a group of maybe 7 people that you mentor in one meeting, which benefits the mentorees as well because they can share their cumulative experience. It's not as intimate as a one-on-one, but it helps you scale and it's less of the no. But then number 2 is something we call manager office hours, where we say every Friday we're gonna have a 1-hour slot and anyone can take 15 minutes or 20 minutes of that slot to talk about whatever they want, right? So the having to say no is very hard to do, and I think being creative on how you handle that no through scaling, but also having guiding principles on when you're going to say yes is important. And then the last thing I'll say, when you have to say that firm no, you want to refer them to someone else so you want to have a reason why, because I think that's important to give that kind of feedback. Hey, this is why I'm saying no. It's not because I don't value you, because often if you say no, they're going to think, oh, okay, I'm not valued, but because I think you're going to benefit more from this other person.
Awesome. Rakesh, a bank is a lot more formal than a tech company, right? From your perspective, is a no okay in a bank? Or how do you handle this differently?
No, it is, right? So like, I try to accommodate as many people as I can. And I always try to have at least initial, maybe 10, 15 minutes dialogue with them, just trying to understand where they are and what do they want to achieve in life, right? And to Jay's point, right, if there's a slight mismatch, right, between your own personal experience and where they want their professional journey to go, you actually refer them to somebody else. And I have done that in the past and said, look, I think this person might be better suited for you to act as a mentor. And then I have facilitated their contact, right? And they've gone off in their merry way. For me, I always look at, where they are, what they want to do in life. And if there's a nice match, I will definitely work with them. Personality fit is very important to me. If the personality doesn't mesh, it doesn't, it's a waste of time. I look for sincerity and eagerness to grow. That's why I don't know how Abhi and Jay feel. I personally like working with younger folks, fresh out of college, very early in their careers, because they're really open to listening and they're hungry to learn. And those are the people you can make a tremendous amount of impact on. The more seasoned the person gets, they're set in their ways and getting being open to, I think Abhi was saying earlier, being open to feedback. It's not that easy to convey that. So for me, I don't want to be construed as ageism, but I like to work with younger kids who have the same vision of where they want to go.
No, and it's not ageism. This is a safe space, and we want you to feel like you're sitting on your couch and you're having coffee with me. No, these are great insights. I really thank you all for sharing this. In the interest of time, I had a couple more questions, but I don't think we'll have that here. I'd rather give this opportunity to our audience to have questions answered, as well as, so Kush, do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm happy to ask more.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one question. There's one question about what is the difference between a mentor and executive coach? So that was a question about that.
Yeah, I can answer that because I actually have some people on my team that have an executive coach. So I would say executive coach is much more formal and goal oriented. And as an example, we had someone that was a high potential that we wanted to turn into a next generation leader, meaning that, you know, go from senior director to VP. But there was some gaps that he had to overcome in order to get there. And so we recommended that he have an executive coach that very directly worked with him on these gaps, and also worked with the leaders around him to make sure that those gaps were addressed and we could ultimately get him to promotion. Mentor, I think, is a little bit more general, where you have long-term goals that you're chasing after, and you're looking for that support and guidance along that journey. But it can be multifaceted. It's not as targeted as, hey, you know, we want to make you to VP in the next 1 year. We're going to give you a coach to deal with all the issues that you have that you need to overcome. It's a little bit more like, hey, my career ambition in 3 years is to become a technology leader. You know, how do I get there? Or what's your experience? What's your personal experience in career? It's a little bit more about the other person's experience versus solving specific problems that you may have.
Okay, I think with the time limit and everything else, if I can move to, because I think this is a great job, Divya, for moderating this session. And I really want to thank Abhi, Jay, and Rakesh for answering all the questions, the tough questions from Divya. And so doing a fantastic job with it. So the natural question is, what is the next step? So I really don't want to kind of end this session without talking about what are the next steps. If you're interested in this one, so let me just take a minute to go through that. And we are going to able to have a mentoring session, even a networking session right after that. So please, if you can stay on, the panelists can answer even more questions, and they can also interact with you. And if you need to ask some questions, they'll be able to answer it. So let's talk about the timeline. The registration open through March 31st. And the way to go is you can go to the ASEI USA website and go to the MentorConnect. And what you'll do is you'll review what is a guidance document, and there is also how you have to fill out a complete form for that. Pairing will be done by end of March, and the program officially starts in April, and it goes on for 6 months. One of the things we want to do this time, and it was tried also last time, where we want to have a panel discussion in the middle of the program in July to really understand how the program is going, what are we doing well, what can be improved, and all that. So we'll have a session in July to have some discussion on the mid program, and then end of the program will be October, and there will be a survey which which you mentors and mentees will be completing to really understand what went well and what can be done for the next program. So we really want to make this as not one and done. We want to make this as an ongoing activity. So we really appreciate all of the interest for all the participants. So I want to thank all the participants for taking the time on Saturday to participate in this one. One other thing I want to announce that March is Women's History Month, and ASEI is a very progressive, and what we want to be able to do is that this program is for ASEI members, but because of the March being the Women's History Month, we are opening up to any women who may not be ASEI member, but are interested in mentorship. We'll have one free session with the mentor for all the women. So we want to encourage women to participate in this ASEI MentorConnect program. So really want to thank the participants and everyone else. Is there any other questions on the chat which has come up since I've been sharing my desktop?
Yes,
I want to thank.
Piyush asks a very relevant question.
Yes. What is the
How
question?
do you put guardrails in place so as to not share confident information during mentoring sessions?
Okay. So I'm going to start sharing and get back to the moderator and the panelist.
Yeah, I can take that a bit. in corporate finance, I help coordinate long-term financial projections. I mean, that's pretty confidential information. So when you're talking to the mentees, you just don't share information like that, and if you have a true good relationship, the mentee won't be so inquisitive as to get that confidential information out of you. I personally have never encountered an issue like that. I work on some, M&A related opportunities. It's only like, a few people, 2 or 3 people our bank is pretty small, 5,000 people or so. So, not many people know about it anyway. So, for me personally, I've never had that kind of an issue. But Jay or Abhi or even Divya, would be interesting to see, how you guys, if you even had that issue.
Yeah, I think when you're working cross-organizationally, like in this group, materially sensitive things about your own job is obviously something that you're not going to talk about. And like you said, Rakesh, hopefully it's not a situation that you need to deal with because both sides are smart about that. I think if you're mentoring within your own organization, you have to just understand that you're talking to senior executives. So if you do say something that's a violation of employee success or the HR department's protocols, we're almost required to say something, right? So you have to just be a little bit smart about that. But in general, I would agree with Rakesh. I just haven't experienced a situation where, assuming that you've built the mentorship on trust, it's ever been an issue.
Thank you, Jay and Rakesh. This is Piyush. I just wanted to say this becomes very important, especially when you have a public forum like what we are trying to put in place. And given that this is year 2 of our MentorConnect program, we wanted to see if we can put any guardrails in place so that some kind of a NDA is put in place by both parties. Yeah. At the same time, you have to be open enough with the mentees so that they learn by your experiences, but at the same time, it doesn't compromise your executive position in your own organization. So that was the only intent of this question, and it was more for the thought-provoking thing that the organizers of the MentorConnect program, Ram, Divya, and Sai and Kush are going to be putting in place for this cohort number 2. I wanted to make sure that's at the kickoff itself, we have that in place, because as a nonprofit organization, we want to make sure the benefits are accrued to the members, but at the same time, don't want to take any liability. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up, Piyush. I think that's a very
Divya, one quick question, if you allow me. Yeah, the great insights. One quick question. I was hearing about the mentee responsible being open and seeking. What if we receive a mentee who are not open and learning, which itself is a mental block, which I feel needs a mentoring. So what's your stand? Let this team know how we can handle that situation. But
any one of our panelists want to take that?
Well, I think you can argue that's the type of person you want to mentor and coach, because they're obviously coming to you in the wrong way. So first, I would see if the person's open to listening, taking feedback on how they approached, and then changing. Because I think I forget, Abhi, I think you mentioned it, but follow-up is important. And so if someone comes in and gives the wrong first impression, I think that's okay, as long as we can give the feedback and there's follow-up and there's improvement. But if the relationship is just not simply going to work, I think it's in the interest of both parties that we actually just say, hey, I'm not the right person, or maybe you're not the right mentoree, and we find the right fit for that person. Thanks,
Jay. This is Ram. And again, I want to be cognizant of your time, of the panelists' time as well. We made some commitments. So I just want to say again, Divya, thanks for moderating, mentoring, and Rakesh, Jay, Abhi, thanks a lot for participating. We do have a Kumo space open for networking. It's in the chat box. So for those of you who can switch over, it's an easy click, very interesting opportunity to network one-on-one or as in groups. So please do continue to make the switch. I know it's awkward to do that, but if you want to continue the discussion, please feel free to switch to the Kumo space and then we can continue the conversation there. Good?
It's like a metaverse. Ram?
Thank you.
It's like a metaverse?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. We're going to metaverse now. Okay, thank you.
Please.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
thanks
you, guys.
everyone.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks
Divya.
so much, everyone.
Thanks,
Great job.
John.
Thank you
Very
very
good
much.
session. Very informative session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Please
you.
join us on the Kuma space. Please join us on the
Okay.
Kuma
Yeah,
space.
that's why I'm leaving the chat up for right now. Not ending the meeting, leaving the chat so that people can click on it and join. Thank you, Divya. That was a brilliant moderation.
Oh, thank you, Vatsala. I had fantastic panelists.
Yes,
All right,
panelists
see you in the Kuma space.
Take care.
Thank you, Rakesh ji, for your nice presentation.
You're welcome, Papa.
Vatsala, you may want to stop recording.
I will.
Thank you.